All right, perfect.
So yeah, so we're doing like an interview based on for like international students just hearing like their
Right.
stories. So yeah, so as long as we know what
Okay.
So the first question is, what is your name?
So my full name is Yelizaveta Sidorova, but I just go by Lisa.
And where is your country of origin?
I was born in Russia.
And what province?
I'm over in Union right now. Mhm.
And that's dangerous.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, not too much.
Oh, okay, yeah.
When or how old are you?
I'm 22.
And your gender?
I'm a female.
And why did you decide to
So it wasn't my decision, but my parents, because my parents had me while they were still in college. So my mom was finishing up her master's program, and my dad had dropped out of his and was working. And so he was finding better work in the United States, and he was traveling back and forth while my mom was finishing school. And so he found a job here. And ultimately, when I was 3 years old, my mom and I decided to move out here to join him.
so so what has life been like for you? Do you remember
Yeah, and I've gone back a lot, so I definitely do have the comparison. I think that so when I learned how to speak English, it was from going and like talking to people, like coming up to people and just having a conversation. And I was 3 years old, 4 or 5, whatever. So like just it was okay for me to do. Whereas like in Russia, something like that isn't exactly like okay to do. Like it's not. If I were to come up to a stranger or something like that in Russia and just start talking to them, it would be like, well, control your kid. So there's definitely that kind of a difference there. But like culturally, I feel like Americans are a lot nicer and like more accepting. Um, and I feel like that's been consistent ever since I've like been going back and forth and stuff like that. Um, we lived when we first moved here in like an apartment complex, and actually a lot of our friends moved around the same time that we did. So it was like family friends that my parents knew from school, from just like connections from other places. So we would like during the summer, I remember like going outside at like 11 in the morning and playing outside until 6 o'clock at night until our parents were calling us in, and there were parents like all over the place. So if we ever needed something or somebody like got hurt or whatever it is, like it was just such an open community, and I had absolutely no restrictions. Whereas Russia, we were in Moscow, we were in that like, city environment in like cramped apartments, and so there was no like go out and play outside or anything. It was like hold mom's hand every single moment, and then like maybe we can go in the backyard and play on the playground if there was one in the apartment complex. If not, it was like taking a bus and a train to a playground, which like nobody really wanted to do. So,
so how do you retain like your Russian culture?
so when I first moved here, I went to Russian school. So I took like Russian classes. I did chess, which was really big. And I took math classes, and it was like a specific like Russian school. So all my teachers were Russian. We still celebrate a lot of the holidays. So like Russian Easter's this upcoming weekend, and then our New Year's is like the American equivalent of Christmas. So that's when we do our presents, and that's when Santa comes. And then there's Russian Christmas. That's a couple weeks afterwards. So just those major holidays. Um, our grandparents are still a big part of like my life, so like they come and visit all the time, like will stay with us for a couple of months, so like getting to experience the culture through them, and then being able to go back as often as I do. We usually go back like every other summer just for like passport purposes. Yeah.
And so are there like challenges as it easy or like how do you navigate it?
It was easy, I feel like, as a kid because I didn't have to like really be a part of anything. Everything was just done for me. And the parents used to be a lot more involved in like creating like really celebrating the holidays with us together and like doing like shows and whatever for the kids. Like we would rent out a community center and they put on like Russian plays for us, and that was a lot easier when we were all like 8 or under. And then as like we started getting older, other things became more of a priority, and so people really stopped caring. So it really just came down to like within each family how much everyone wanted to keep like culturally keep going with things. Um, I mean, my parents are still pretty heavily embedded into it, so I don't think that it's that hard, like for my particular household.
So we talked about this already, but do you remember like more differences between like Russian and US, like just like
Yeah, just the people I think are a lot rougher in Russia, and it's like this very like independent, like um, kind of a culture, and I feel like America is said to be a lot independent as well, but it's like a different level of independence. Like it really is everybody for themselves, and I always felt very judged when I was there. I feel like too, where I would show up there and I had like my little American accent with everything because I lost my Russian accent relatively quickly. I moved here when I was 3, and so people would try to speak to me in Russian, and I would talk in my like broken. Like I speak pretty good Russian, but like sometimes I'll miss a word or a tense or something like that, and it was immediately like, well, I thought you were Russian. Looks like you're just American. You know, it was just like this quick, like harsh judgment, whereas in America it doesn't feel that way. You know, people were more like impressed, like, oh, you can speak Russian, like all this kind of stuff, and it was a lot like more open, and I felt like I had more opportunities here. Like I kind of figured out really quickly that like my teachers were a lot more open and stuff like that, even in comparison to like the Russian teachers that were here. You know, it was just a lot like a much more open and understanding environment. I didn't really get to experience a lot of teachers over there, but from what my parents tell me, it's very similar, like the strict kind of like guidance that they offer. I don't remember a lot of my time in Russia. I think I adapted very well, just with like living in such an open environment, having like having a support system built in. You know, with having our friends and like instantly going up with people that like had the same experience I did. Because I don't think any of my like friends, like us older siblings, were all born in Russia, and then our parents like immigrated, and then the younger ones, like my brother and sister, were born in America. But so I had that support system like from the very beginning, so I was able to kind of hold on to that world of like Russia and what that was and like what that meant to my parents because I would never get to experience it in the same way that they did. But then I was also able to um, like learn more about this new place that I was in, a new environment, and be able to grow in it and be open in it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I'm a peer advisor coordinator here on campus. So I work with the PAs and just help with the incoming students. And then I also work at a ice skating rink here in New Jersey, and I do like employee management, office hour scheduling, all that kind of stuff. I'm a psychology major. Yeah. I work a good amount. I like working. I've always liked practical experience. Like I really struggle in a school environment. Like I get good grades and stuff like that, but it's really frustrating for me. Yeah, like the tests and the quizzes and the papers, and I feel like it's just useless at a certain point. Like the grade is not going to show my actual understanding. I like being able to go out and like do things and see like how what I've learned actually applies to the real world. I like hiking a lot. I have a 9-month-old Siberian Husky who has a lot of energy, so take him out a lot. I like working at the ice skating rink. I'm restructuring their management structure right now, so I've been investing a lot of time in that. Currently catching up on Game of Thrones. So yeah, I'm just working the rest of the time. Thank you. That's a good question. I think that my mom, when first having me, and this also could have been just a young parent thing when she was 21 when she had me, was that everything was very like strict, and we also didn't come like in a financially great situation. So like my dad graduated with a bachelor's in physics, didn't finish his master's, and was doing like business work here. So he just found a job like just to help us, and he was making more here than he was in Russia. So my parents, a lot of it was like figuring out how to live in another country without grandparents, like without their parents for support, and just it's a culture shock. It's a whole different environment. Um, people being so open, like they don't do like PTO in Russia or anything like that. They don't do like parents get involved in education. The only way that your parents get involved in Russia at school is if you're doing something wrong. Like it's all like it's that. It's not like these organizations to support the school or anything like that. So my mom never did any of that. Like the concerts that I had, any like those like mommy and like daughter lunch or whatever. Like she just never came to those because that's not what things like that's not what they did ever. So she's like, why am I gonna have lunch with you at school when you're gonna come home and we can eat together anyways, you know? And so over time, with my brother's 13 years old and my sister is 7. So looking at my mom with my sister now, it's a completely different thing. Like she is very involved in my sister's school community. She has friends that like they do the whole play date thing. I was never allowed to have sleepovers as a kid. Victoria does. Like it's she's become more open. I feel like as she's gone through all of the kids because like she's just realized that that's kind of the American way. Everyone's very involved. We're very community centered, whereas like Russia, it's again just very like not what it is. And for my dad, I don't know. He's always been like very like I just need to do what I need to do. So I don't think the adapting for him was very difficult. It was just finding work that like he could support us.
So you mentioned this one, but what I was curious to so you said you like
Yeah, yeah, that was like a weekend school, like on top of. So their education system, I hated because it was very like strict and focused on things that I didn't necessarily think mattered. So like very much attention to like handwriting, to like very early a pen was put in my hands and it was like you need to learn how to write without making mistakes. Whereas like American school, like pencils are a thing, like it's like little things like that, like learning how to write in cursive sooner in Russian than I did in like public school and making sure everything's like pretty and neat and stuff like that. And even like in math, that was the case. Whereas in America, it was really more focused on like learning the concept, but in Russia, it was like learning the concept and then also making it look nice. Because if like we have it a little bit here, it's like, oh, if the teacher can't read your work, then you didn't do the work. But I feel like we're given a lot more opportunities, whereas with Russia, it wasn't like quite the case like with that stuff, and it felt like a lot of high pressure. And I didn't feel like I had an opinion. I felt like even as a kid, like there was no like I think this. It was like no, this is what I'm telling you to think. Whereas in public school, everything was again just like open. Like when we had reading circles. Exactly. I don't think I ever asked a question in Russian school just out of fear, honestly. And I did. I saw that like one translated into the other because of the higher standard that I was held in Russian school. I think that it caused me to become competitive in like my public schools. Like I had to be the first one done with my work. If I understood what a teacher was saying while they were teaching, I would just do the work, and I got in trouble for that a lot as a kid. Or like they would be teaching, I would be doing the work while they're teaching because I already knew how to write my alphabet, or I already knew how to do my multiplication because I learned that in Russian school. And so they would get mad at me and be like, well, I wasn't done talking. And I was like, okay, but I already know how to multiply 2 times 2. So it's like, yeah. Like, whereas at Russian school, if somebody was teaching and I did all the work, it would be like, oh, well, look, Lisa already knows how to do this. Like, it wouldn't be like looked down upon just because it didn't fit in like the classroom structure. So it was like, it's different things. Yeah.
yeah, so you mentioned
Sorry.
no, no, it's okay. So yeah, so things that you like, I guess both the United States education system, but also the Russian system. Is there any
Yeah.
like similarities?
Um, so Russia very much focused on what they would kind of call the core subjects, like what they felt was important. So like if I went in to a Russian university as like a physics major, I would really only be taking math and science classes. Whereas like here we yes, I'm a psychology major, but I've taken history and sociology and biology and all of these kind of things that aren't necessarily relevant to my major. And I think that there's pros and cons to both. And that's the biggest one that I can think of is like Russia really streamlines kind of like what you're headed towards. So my parents went to school, my mom went for geology and like that is all that she studied. My dad went for physics and that's all that he like focused on. Because it was like, what's the point of wasting time on other things? So there is that side of things of like I almost wish we were a bit more focused like that here because there are definitely a couple of like classes that I've taken where I've been like I've just taken these literally just because like they're a requirement and I haven't gotten anything out of them. Whether that's because like of me and me not getting anything out of it because I couldn't see what I could get out of it, or whether it was because like maybe I just didn't have a good teacher because I've definitely felt like that sometimes. But then there's also the reverse side of it where I have taken classes that I have been extraordinarily interested in. Like I never would have taken a history class if if I didn't have to, and I ended up loving it so much. You know, so it like definitely broadened my experiences, and I saw like okay, psychology and history do have a connection, but like psychology and my ethics class didn't because my ethics class just wasn't taught very well to me. So I think like with both, it's like finding that balance between like streamlining your education towards like what your interests are and what's going to benefit you, but also kind of opening up to certain things, but just maybe it's so challenging, but just maybe doing it in like a smarter way, like figuring out like okay, psychology and history have a really big relationship, so let's make psychology majors take history classes, and that's also beneficial because when if like psychology majors want to teach at a higher education level, or excuse me, secondary education, it's like having a history degree with it is like really beneficial because no school just wants to hire a psychology teacher, they want you to be able to do something else. I didn't know that until like my junior year, you know, so it was like it was kind of sucky because then I do want to teach at some point. It would have been great to just take history classes right now instead of wasting time on like ethics or like my religion classes, which I really didn't like care for. And I get this as a Catholic, so it's like a different relationship here, but kind of like that idea of things. I think so. You're like, what is this? Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. I think that I think that we need to be in an environment where we can foster people's opinions and allow people to have opinions and just be able to help people talk about different viewpoints. Because like obviously my experience, I consider myself American. You know, I have a dual citizenship and everything, but I've been here since I was 3. I don't really necessarily consider myself like more Russian than I do American. But different people in different countries have different experience. You know, we're already starting to kind of tackle it in that sense from like the point of like race and ethnicity, right? Where like we can't just say everybody's equal because like my experience as a woman is different than a man's experience. My experience as somebody who's white is different than somebody who's black. And I feel like I never got that. Like, I never got to hear those different things, and everything was very just like taught by the book and like censored too. And I know this is like might sound silly, but my biggest issue with education is like I learned in first grade that Christopher Columbus was a fantastic person who did all these great things, and then I get to middle school and it's like actually Christopher Columbus is the worst. And I felt so lied to. I was like, I thought this guy was great. We have a whole day dedicated to him. Why am I learning just now? How horrible! Like, and that gap kind of like in the education, and I feel like that if you apply that even to like an international student at that point, like that's even more of a disservice to them, is because like you're just it's like not being taught in the right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm very like an uncensored type of person. Like my 7-year-old sister can ask me anything, and I'm willing. She asked me like what neutering my dog meant, and I explained everything to her. You know, which maybe I shouldn't have, but like, what was the point of lying to her? You know, so I've always just been like that kind of very open person, and I think I like making people uncomfortable and putting out those like difficult topics because until you address them, nothing gets better. And so putting them out in those issues and having like differing opinions and encouraging people from different backgrounds to speak on them and be like, well, in my country this is what happens, or like from when I grew up this is what my experience was with A, B, and C. You know, because my I learned a lot about race through my grandparents because in Russia everybody's white and so you didn't have like my my grandparents would come here and they would say just like the worst things that I didn't even like think about at first. And then like I got to like learn and see through them like what microaggressions are and what biases and stuff like that. And I think that I wish that I had almost gotten to learn about it sooner. So like having just that open, challenging environment. Obviously not with first graders, but I think we can start a little sooner because like I feel like people are coming to college like uneducated nonsense. Yeah, yeah, I think it's important. Awesome.